lot of things were going upgrade from 4G to 5G. So therein lies like part of it. We were doing an infrastructure upgrade.
Yes.
That's kind of when you're a little bit more vulnerable. When you're doing these infrastructure upgrades. So you're doing this infrastructure upgrade. And first it starts with point one, maybe don't have the malign actors lead this for you. Maybe don't do that.
Listen, they already have houses on the farmland right there. They can you don't even need a hotel.
So one can imagine as we go from 5G to 6G, we're doing the 6G planning right now, right, for our broader telecom system.
6G.
Yeah, there's definitely planning for that and what that's going to look like. These are buzzwords, just like Web3 is a buzzword, right? Yeah. But the point is you're doing like an infrastructure upgrade for telecom and how we use telecom, both wired and wireless, how we transmit data to each other in different ways. Maybe when we go to 6G, let's not outsource it to the CCP. So we'll start with that. Let's not give them the contract. That's point number one.
What if they bid the best?
I know. Like, what if they're the lowest price? Somehow they came in as the lowest price. I don't know how they did it. It's amazing. I guess we got to give it to them.
Yeah.
So some of it's like, okay, we could get a little smarter than that. Uh-huh. Two, then, once you in that upgrade process, there's going to be all new protocols and APIs that are written that will kind of negate anything that happened in the 5G and earlier world. Much like if something feels weird on your phone, what's one of the first things basic support type's going to tell you to do? Well, you restart it. If that doesn't work, download, do the update on your Mac and then reinstall the operating system because that has a way of like correcting certain things that might happen even at like the binary level. Like it has a way of correcting that. That's also the opportunity we can do there. The benefit of doing it in like the modern, what I call like the agentic age, is that as we transition, and we're using telecom here, but talk about like any network, mesh network between humans. By the way, the 6G network will not just be about, and should not be about, just connecting humans. It should be about connecting humans and machine clusters as well, and how they transmit data between each other.
When you say machine clusters for people out there,
yeah, machine cluster. I mean, it's a matrixy kind of sounding term, but what I mean by that is something that. By the way, I said when I did the Palantir DevCon, it was all dark green in there.
You did a Palantir DevCon?
Yeah, we'll talk about this. Yes,
we'll get
to this. Yeah.
Who sent this guy?
Don't worry, it's fine. It's fine. There's a few folks downstairs waiting to meet you afterwards, but like it's all good.
If I blink twice,
yeah.
Send help in the comment section.
So they had this kind of cool vibe in it where it was all like, the dark green and looked very much like Matrix. And I'm like, oh, I'm by far the oldest one around in this. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. You guys are doing OG Matrix stuff. And I swear a couple people look back at me like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, come on.
Keanu Reeves.
Come on. That's real though. That's real. That's wild. Yeah. So
we were talking about machine clusters.
So a machine cluster being just some kind of artificial intelligence. And I mean that term, like AI is such a buzzword now. I don't even know if anybody knows what it means anymore. But
I don't think they do.
I don't think so. Like, here's what I mean by that. I mean, some kind of intelligence that came from a model, not directly from a human. Just leave it at that.
Okay.
And then it's broadcast from a machine. That could be something that like mimics how a human talks. That could be just a screen, a laptop, whatever. We want to be able to interact with that entity, that agent, from human to agent. We want those agents to be able to interact with each other in a way that we can understand. This is actually really important. And decipher so that we don't have a bunch of black boxes where the machines on our networks, this is kind of already happening in some cases.
Oh, yeah.
We don't like this. We need to be able to see how the machines are coordinating. We need to be able to understand this.
Remember the Facebook one in 2016?
Yes. Yeah.
They invented some AIs. They invented, and then they invented their own language.
Yeah, they invented their own language.
And they were like, all right, we're going to pull out the plug. Wait till you can't pull out the plug on these motherfuckers.
Like I think it was, didn't Eric Schmidt just say something like this, I think?
Did he talk about it now?
He just, I think.
He was Google, right?
Yeah, he was Google. I just saw something where he was talking about, he said basically this, like once the machines start interacting with a more efficient language, because it's more efficient than English or some other kind of MLP, then that's probably like that's when it's like pull the plug thing. And then the real like joke is I think OpenAI just advertised or role that if you read in between it kind of looks like it's not, but it kind of looks like, hey, I'm going to pay you just to stand at that corner right there next to the plug. And like if we blink twice in this case, pull that plug. It basically looks like they just advertise a role like this for somebody to sit in their data centers. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So it's in our interest.
Uh-huh.
It's in our interest to develop protocols to allow the machines to coordinate with themselves and with other humans in a transparent way.
Where we got a leash on them.
Yes. That will also help us extricate malign foreign actors, like the Chinese and others, from our own data systems.
Uh-huh.
So if we do it right, it's all about if we do it right. That's why this is such an important time. Like if we do, this is true for so many different things in tech right now. If we do it right, if we do it from a value base that cares about the human as an individual, if we do it right, we can create just tremendous human prosperity. I 100% believe that. If we do it wrong, we will enslave our kids and ourselves, maybe permanently.
Or they'll be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ever read the book Superintelligence by Bostrom?
That one I know of.
Read that.
I haven't read that. Yeah.
I read that in 2018 or 2019. And, this was back when I would like try to have conversations with people about AI and they just look at you. Yeah.
It's different
and now people won't shut the fuck up about it. I'm like, where you been? But Bostrom effectively went like psycho mode. And it's really incredible. It could be nothing or it could be brilliant. I don't know, but he's definitely a very smart guy. And he basically created decision trees worth of all the different possibilities.
Yeah.
And just like went full, like seeing the fractals, like where it could all go. And I ain't gonna lie, it scared the shit out of me because there are so many ways that if you let this jack out of the box, it walks away bipedal and you never fucking see it again.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I also think it's all in how we design it. It's all how we design. Here's a parallel. We talk a lot about AI, and I do because that's the field I'm in. And I know a little bit about, this is not my field, but there's actually some pretty both impressive and disturbing things happening, like human biology and genes right now. So when I was at MIT, which is where I launched my company out of.
Just a casual.
No
MIT
big deal.
man.
Just dropping that.
Yeah. We'll stick that in the title for you. It'll make you feel better.
I'll fling that at you. Yeah, I'll fling that. But they're all in on this. Like, so that's where I knew it. Like, I got to go talk to some lab folks doing this. So there's some folks doing things that are not as much in the news with large data sets, big computational power, agentic analysis on the human genome, and different ways to solve problems and maybe create a whole new set of problems for us if we don't do it the right way. So, and I think that's
like offshoot species kind of thing.
I mean, this is worth pulling up. There's a lab that just came out. This just came out, 2-3 weeks ago. It's both machine and human biology, and it's crawling around on a table. Yeah. This is worth finding. Yeah, this just came out. Trying to think of which lab came up with this.
Machine.
It has a machine biology. And humans. It has like human flesh on it, and it has these two little arms crawling around. Yeah, it's like about
get to the chopper.
Yeah, is a small machine.
Okay, what does that title say, Joe? This crawling robot is made with living brain and muscle cells. Scientists want to know if a biohybrid robot can form a long-lasting biological mind to direct movement. Tell me more. It's a bizarre sight. With a short burst of light, a sponge-shaped robot scoots across a tiled surface. Flipped on its back, it repeatedly twitches as if it's doing sit-ups. By tinkering with the light's frequency, scientists can change how fast the strange critter moves and how long it needs to rest after a long crawl. Soft robots are nothing new, but the spongy bot stands out in that it blends living muscle and brain cells with a 3D printed skeleton and wireless electronics. Mm-hmm. This is the Great Society. Mm-hmm. The neurons genetically altered to respond to light trigger neighboring muscles to contract or release. Watching the robot crawl around is amusing, but the study's main goal is to see if a biohybrid robot can form a sort of long-lasting biological mind that directs movement. Neurons are especially sensitive that rapidly stop working or even die outside of a carefully controlled environment. Using blob-like amalgamations of different types of neurons to direct muscles, the sponge bots retained their crawling ability for over 2 weeks. Scientists have built biohybrid bots to use electricity or light to control muscle cells. Some mimic swimming, walking, and grabbing motions. Adding neurons could further fine-tune their activity and flexibility, and even bestow a sort of memory for repeated tasks.
So this is what I love about this, like just in general. This, like any person from any field can look at that and say, that could be used for tremendous good or tremendous evil. That's the truth for a lot of the way we're interacting with machines right now.
I completely agree with you.
It's also, I say this a lot too, that's why, this is why American leadership matters so much in this domain.
Define leadership there.
So,
like the people who are running the companies?
Not necessarily that, although it could be. What I would say is maybe broader than this is that the leaders of companies and there's the government, that are involved in this area, if they don't start from a value system that values human life, you can see where this is going to go.
Yes.
That has never been more important. That's never been more important. If you have one of these transhumanists or someone else in some kind of environment that is inventing tech like what we just saw, doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where that's going.
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
I think people out there have a genuine and well-founded concern that there are people like that running some of these places who do think that way.
Well, I think it's probably right. I think it's right.
And it's like, okay, that feels sociopathic. And all it takes is one who, lets the T-Rex out of the cage, and that's it. You know what I mean?
It's why that's part of my motivation is, I think, again, back to ruthlessly pragmatic but eternally optimistic. We can decide, and I mean we as like the royal we can decide how we want to use technology like this. Like we can decide how to use this. So there's never been a time where we need leaders of high character and value more. There's never been a time where we need that.
Are you familiar with Colossal Labs in Dallas?
Yeah.
So Thief's actually wearing the shirt right now.
Oh, excellent.
But
All right.
they brought back a genetic version that's similar to a direwolf. There's a lot of arguments there as to whether or not it's a true direwolf and all that, because they manipulated gray wolf genes to be able to get there. So a lot of ecologists and scientists are like, it's fucking nothing. And then others are like, there's something there. I'm still like trying to figure out exactly where it goes from there. But we had Ben in here, who's the CEO of the company. We also had Matt James, who's their chief animal officer. And I'm going down there in March to visit the labs and like see what's what. But, the big concern is that not even like as a joke, it sounds funny to say, but it's serious, is that this turns into like Jurassic Park. Frankenstein all wrapped in one. And you let the rabbit out of the hat and we're fucked because you invent something that's crazy. And so I think it's important that, because like we like Ben, really good guy, like business guy, right? So seeing him surround himself with a lot of people, he's got 1 million people on the team that are like conservation and animal first. That's important to me because it's like, okay, are those going to be good guardrails to make sure that like, even if Ben has a well-intentioned idea as a guy who doesn't, he's a business guy. As a guy who may not think of where that could go too far, do you have people there being like, no, that's Pandora's box, don't touch that. Now, you talk about the good. This is where I'm very curious about the company, and I'm still like undecided on where this all goes. I'm open-minded, but for example, one of the things that sold Matt James, the chief animal officer, on joining the company in the first place was the fact that Matt had spent decades working with a lot of animals, but specifically elephants. And there is a virus. It's basically like, it's called something, but it's basically like elephant herpes that currently kills 20% of the elephant population around the world. And so one of the goals of Colossal is to recreate a woolly mammoth. And in recreating it using basically like CRISPR and AI technology to create like a genome and genetic code before it's a living thing, like an actual like, oh, maybe we made a woolly mammoth, they can take the data from that because it is a distant relative, not even that distant, a relative of an elephant, and test it outside of it being alive, like on the computer simulation system to see what they could possibly use to pluck out of that. And I'm oversimplifying it here, but this is how it works. Pluck it out of that and basically inject it into the current living elephant population and destroy that disease forever. If they could accomplish something like that, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Just don't make fucking 3-headed human hybrids that suddenly are like clones of Tom Brady's dog.
Yeah.
That's when
no man bear pigs.
Yeah, exactly.
No man bear pigs.
I'm like, you know, Ben, like I texted Ben, I'm like,
not a fan.
Because Tom Brady talked about cloning his dog. I'm like, Ben, you cloned Tom's dog? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, all right, let's not do that, you know? But you see the point. It's the same lane.
It's the same thing. And it's kind of a fine, it's a super fine line, because to break down what you're talking there, and this applies to AI, it will not be obvious. It will not be obvious where that line is. There'll be people that are thinking about it, but this is just part of pushing frontier tech. You literally haven't done it before.
Right.
Same kind of tech we're doing for machine learning to have something operate without a GPS at all. Like, it hasn't been done. So you're gonna push it to a point, and you end up solving the math term like objective function. So you're like, objective function solve for this, and then as an inventor in a lab, you intentionally just like laser focus on that. Like, I will solve this problem, and typically you have to decompose it into like 1,000 different mini problems to solve. So then you solve these 1,000 mini problems. You've uncreated new problems the whole time, and things didn't work, but you finally get to that point. You've intentionally done like a tunnel vision, like you have intentionally done this. So it won't be, it will not be obvious. I think your point about guardrails is salient. What also complicates this, and there's there's both real in this, and I think probably not real. And what complicates this is that every one of these labs, back to my earlier premise, what can be monetized will be weaponized. So everything you're talking about here also has weapons implication. Every single thing does. So that also means it's a mini arms race. Do you want to live in a world where the CCP develops that tech for woolly mammoths?
I do not want to live in a world where fucking laser-eyed woolly mammoths are running at 700 miles per hour through Iraq and trying to take over Saudi Arabian oil fields or what. You know what I mean?
We don't want that.
I don't want that.
We don't want that world. Then we're all just going to have to go to Mars. Like, I'll just turn that on. So rather than do that.
That's what Paul Mosley says. He's like, die on Mars.
Yeah. So that is the argument that I think in most cases that argument is correct.
Yes.
That's why we have to lead in all these areas.
Yes.
Like, because and this is just
we being America.
We being America. This is recognizing that there's dangers in America. There's malign influences here. There's this is far from perfect. But do you want to live in the world where the CCP beats us on this? Do you want to live in a world where they have better autonomous robotic systems than the U.S. does?
No.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants that.
Yeah. And I do feel like people have, because of what's been going on over the last couple of years, people have very righteously pointed out a lot of concerns with like the United States relationship with Israel and some of the influence here between AIPAC and us being dragged into some of these wars over the years, and just a lot of problems there. And they are all well-founded and they should be talked about. We've talked about it on the show, debated it. I have issues with that. The one thing that is starting to get me a little concerned though, is that people are just focusing on that for everything.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's over the top, right? Like, let's focus on the problem. And then they're ignoring other problems too.
Well,
and to me, I'm like, I'm looking at everything.
You have to look at it all because it's all interconnected.
Yes.
The other one being like, it's just a basic premise. How do you achieve peace? I mean, that's kind of what our goal is, right? Like, nobody wants to go fight and die in a war. Nobody wants to do that. So how do you achieve that? Well, the way you do it is through strength. Mm-hmm. So if we were to be like, hey, we don't want to get enmeshed with this, or we don't want to do this, we don't want to develop this technology because of potential ramification X, Y, or Z, whatever it is, make up whatever you want. And so what you're saying is we're going to take a knee on this technology and we're going to allow the CCP to get it.
Right.
That then changes the calculus for how all of the political relations happens between
100%.
us, and that puts the free world in a position that we do not want, and I don't think we can afford at all.
Yeah. There was something, I've done episodes over the years with Andy Bustamante. He was actually he was in my parents' house back in the day doing a podcast, probably wondering what went wrong with his life, but it worked out for him. But there's one thing, he says a lot of shit that I fight with him about and that people righteously call him out for in the comments as like a government mouthpiece. But there's, he also gives some harsh truths on stuff that people don't want to hear on things. That's why I respect him. And one of the things that he went through, I don't even think this one's like an example of the harsh truth. It's just like reality. I just never simplified it to this, like, duh. But like, he said the only fucking 3 letters that matter for any country in the world overall at the top, 90% of it are G, D, and P. What's their GDP?
Yeah.
So when you look at China and seeing how tight they are with our GDP and their population and their lack of rules and what they take from us, that's something that should be blinking red.
100%. And I'll throw a couple more just that amplify that.
Yep.
One is, last number I saw, we have 11.49 million full-time employed manufacturing workers.
11.49 million.
In the U.S.
Okay.
The Chinese have 198 million.
That we know of.
Yeah.
There's another 200 in locked downstairs.
So one, there's GDP, but there's also massive disparity on the ability to produce things. And then the number that's probably not even captured in GDP is the IP theft.
What's that, like 600 billion or some shit?
Oh, it's way higher than that. The IP theft of what has been stolen or taken from all across US, EU as well, but mostly the US. Think about this. So you have cutting edge intellectual property developed at a lab, at a tech startup, at a VC-backed at a government entity, whatever, at a university. You have some kind of cutting edge breakthrough in something. The amount of that's been stolen, so they didn't have to put any of the R&D into it. They didn't have to invest into getting it to that point. They just Control-C, Control-V, and then they have nearly 200 million people full-time employed in massive manufacturing capabilities to then push something from the digital space into the physical world.
That's right.
That's to me one of the most damning things of our kind of position. So if you think of, just broad, even national security, do nuke weapons stop wars right now? No, they don't. They probably limit them. They limit actions. They put governors and they bring into the calculus.
Okay.
I would argue like the new way of deterring is, and it's really between the U.S. and China, maybe Russia, but it's really between the U.S. and the CCP, is which one can credibly generate hundreds of thousands of robotic agents in medium Earth orbit, low Earth orbit, stratosphere, the air, at sea, subsurface, wave after wave of unrelenting systems and swarms that coordinate themselves every night. Whichever country can do that credibly, and the other one believes that happens, that will give them the ability to coerce and defend their national interests without having to fire a shot. This is actually like really important. That's a deep part of my motivation, is that if we achieve that thing, we achieve a level of national security dominance that prevents conflict. Conflicts happen when they perceive that dominance has eroded.
When they're throwing balloons over.
Yep, they're throwing balloons, and they're like, well, they're not going to respond, or maybe their systems are too old, or they still have kind of a 1990s, early 2000s military that's optimized for defeat ISIS and Al Qaeda. They can't hang with us in this, or we have this unique asymmetric capability to neutralize them. I have a unique munition to to attack carrier strike groups, or I have unique jamming to deny them GPS, which everything relies on GPS, or I have some kind of a cyber attack or some other capability, or I've created blackmail dossiers on everybody that matters in decision making, and I can use that.
Well,
whatever
Epstein
it is,
already did that.
Yeah, whatever it is, right? And it's probably a combination of all these things, right? The world's complicated.
Imagine if Epstein had drones.
We don't Epstein drones, like that should be that'd be a good band name, by the way. Epstein drones. Write that. I'm writing a mental note of that. Epstein drones, like garage band name. Yeah, you'd listen to that. You'd at least hit play. You saw that. You would hit play if you saw Epstein
I would
drones.
Probably hit play once.
Yeah, what fun was, yeah.
And then I might be like, no.
Yeah, no.
No, too many bad images coming around.
Oh,
but you're focused on the drone. Like, I totally agree with you that, and we're going to get into the science of it and all the different use cases and all that. We'll get there. I totally agree with you that being able to use something non-human robotic at large distances in all different places and environments to either stop other threats similarly coming in or be a threat and actually get information is a huge part of this next gen warfare and all that. But like, it's still fair to say there are other elements. Like, I'll even use a simple age-old one. You have a whole system where, like, the CCP sends people through South America all the way up, like, the Mexican coast through Tijuana with like full directions.
This is a problem.
Sitting there, and then they come in, and then we lose them once they come in. Like, that's just one thing. And then they end up on farmland, or they end up. I had a guy in here talking about all the evidence he uncovered in Maine, Steve Robinson, about they end up being marijuana growers for the triads. Like there are other problems too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, I agree that, so I kind of zoom out and then zoom back in the way I think about it for me. Okay. So it's like the zoom in is like, okay, and this is why we launched the company and did the things I'm doing, is where do I have unique experience, skill, unfair advantage, like any good entrepreneur has.
Unfair advantage.
Unfair advantage, yeah. That's actually a MIT-ism. They actually say that.
It would be. Yeah. They have a lot of spooky people.
Unfair advantage, yeah. I mean, I think it's true too. Like a good entrepreneur needs two things. Passion for the subject material, because there's ups and downs, right? You're just going to get kicked down. There's tough days, especially like what we've done, true 0 to 1.
Yes.
But then an unfair advantage. Like, you need, like, what is your unique insight capabilities that you can bring something to market that one of the other companies can't do or won't do, or both,
right?
So I think about that as kind of my area. But to like what we were saying earlier, like, it is connected. So if you had a more dominant drone robotic kind of autonomous system, does that then also improve our ability to go after the use case you just talked about? Maybe directly it does, maybe it doesn't. But if you're dominant in this area, then all of a sudden that frees up political capital and or real capital.
Yes.
To then address that particular issue of, somebody coming in through Tijuana and then, doing some kind of subversive behavior within the states.
Now, here's the other side of that, and you know where I'm going with this. The 1984 aspect.
Sure.
Do the people in charge use something like that as a Trojan horse, meaning like legitimate threat?
Yeah.
Chinese spies coming through Tijuana into San Diego. And then, okay, we're going to use drones there. By the way, we're going to watch this protest over here.
It's very, like any good red-blooded American. I like to watch part of my Christmas thing. I just did it with my 9-year-old this year. As between the kind of like that special zone after Christmas, before New Year, everybody's out of school, so we watched all Lord of the Rings, all of them, fully extended version.
I actually did on the flight back from Rome.
Boom.
Yeah.
Now we're talking. Yeah. So, but it still stands up so well, right? It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's funny because I had always said, I saw them when I was a little kid, and I'd always used them as an example of like, it's not my kind of movie because it's like kind of fantasy world and whatever, but I respected the fuck out of it because Peter Jackson crushed it and they had this unbelievable cast. And then now I literally hadn't watched it in 20 years.
That's
probably.
that's about how I was too when I watched it this past time. Yeah.
And I watched it and I had I was like, wait a minute. No, this is genius.
Yeah.
Like
it really stands
out. It
out.
got me into it for sure.
You know,
yeah.
And just so you know, our drones like that special ring. So powerful.
I was going to do it earlier.
It's so
I was
powerful.
About to do the Schmeagle voice on something you were saying.
Feel free.
I forget what it was, but I'll use it later.
I don't do a good Schmeagle. I have other ones I can do, but obvious reasons.
You ever seen what's his face? Speaking of people doing audiobooks, you ever seen Andy Serkis do the Lord of the Rings audiobook?
No, I need to. Okay, that needs to be.
Steve, can you go to Twitter real fast? If this gets cut out, it's because for some reason it's copyrighted. But type in Andy Serkis audio. It's like SERKES, I want to say, or IS. Yeah, right there. Yeah. Play this real fast. Let's get some audio on that.
Is this going to be copyright?
We're going to find out. If it gets cut out, it's because it's copyrighted. But listen, this is like unreal. He's doing the audio book for Lord of the Rings, and he goes into character. Go ahead.
Quite uselessly, one of the orcs sitting near laughed and said something to a companion in their abominable tongue. "Rest while you can, little fool."
That's not even his character.
That's awesome. Pippin in the common speech, which made him almost as hideous as his own language. "Rest while you can. We'll find a use for your legs before long. You'll wish you had got none before we get home." "If I had my way, you'd wish you were dead now," said the other.
You gotta see when he does Schmeagle.
Squeak, you miserable rat. He stooped over Pippin, bringing his yellow fangs close to his face. He had a black knife with a long, jagged blade in his hand. "Lie quiet, or I'll tickle you with this," he hissed. "Don't draw attention to yourself, or I may forget my orders. Curse the Isengarders! Uglucha bagrong sapuzdog Saruman globubus nok sky."
What the fuck? This is all one take. Pause this real fast,
Steve. Speech in his own tongue.
Just add to the search Schmeagle when he does the Schmeagle thing.
Yeah.
So he's like just talking in, and we'll make a note for the editor when we didn't have the audio at the beginning to cut that little part.
That is a different level
so that people
of like
don't have it.
audiobook
All right. So go down. Go up. Is it that one? No, go down. That one right there. Yeah. I think this is it. Yeah.
Schmeagle was holding a debate with some other thought that used the same voice, but made it squeak and hiss. A pale light and a green light alternated in his eyes as he spoke. "Schmeagle promised."
It's like 20 years later.
Wild, man. Still got it.
Yes, my precious," came the answer. "We promised to save our precious, not to let him have it. Never. But it's going to him, yes. Nearer every step. What's the Hobbit going to do with it? We wonders, yes. We wonders. I don't know. I can't help it. Master's got it. Schmeagle promised to help the master."
All right, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
He's
level.
a goat,
That's the level, man. That is,
different level right there. But you're right, it does hold up like incredibly well, and there's a lot of symbolism to the world, like the real world.
Well, and the theme, one of the themes all throughout it of the human race and mankind just being so easily corrupted by power. Mm-hmm. So, to your earlier point of like, and I mean, it's a valid question, right? And you're actually posing kind of two different sides, and neither of them, when you play it out, is acceptable. And that's kind of the interesting one. One is, let's not give centralized power any kind of real advantage in autonomy in machines because we're concerned that it could be used in a evil way. I'll just keep it very simple.
Okay.
That's one path. That path, when you play that out, is like, okay, I pretty much just guarantee the CCP is going to dominate us in that.
Mm.
The other path is we invest in it, we harness the American economy and entrepreneurship and innovation. We do it. How do we then prevent it from being used for malign kind of purposes?
Yeah, how do we put the guardrails on?
How do we put guardrails? How do we do it? And are those guardrails the same? That's probably an important thing as we expand into new kind of domains and doing things in different areas. There's a level of governance that needs to kind of happen with that.
Yeah.
So I definitely support that. And it will be frontier. I think this is important too. Like there's no playbook. Like this, you're not going to pull up a court ruling from the 80s or a policy paper written by someone that's going to give you the answer on that. Like you're not. This is frontier tech. So it's going to actually be much like the lab, Colossus Labs, like we were talking about earlier. It's going to be kind of opaque from a policy and government standard of what kind of governance is like a speed bump versus a guardrail. That's going to be kind of hard to determine. So to me, what I think matters, and this is not to be trite or trivial about it, but what matters is like, one, the character and values of the people making those decisions has never been more important. Because the place they come from is going to allow them to iterate on it a certain way. And then I think a very realistic view of the incentives has to be looked at. So the incentives of balancing incentives. If you look at like our economy in theory, that's what we're trying to do is balance incentives. You allow entrepreneurs and business leaders and technologists and innovators and engineers to build something to a certain point. If it gets to far too large to where it gets, monopolistic power, then the government actually has like a responsibility to break that up, to ensure competition.
That's right.
That's all part of like how they're governing this, and that's viewed as a positive thing. I think probably by most people, that's viewed as a positive thing.
But when a government's looking at, say, Rockefeller oil, these guys may understand that better. Where I get a little cynical and go, oh, fuck. It's like when you listen to some of these 80-year-old, 50-year senators talk about social media, like, yeah, we went up to this, what's called the Facebook. And it's like, you're going to have a real conversation. You're going to have a real conversation with these people to govern them when, you're, a Luddite.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, that's also why, like, this, and I do not believe this is a controversial position. I'm a businessman. Like, so, I don't get involved in a lot of this, but like term limits kind of make a lot of sense here. Like
good luck.
Like that. Also good luck. I agree.
Yeah.
That could be part of it. And you can play out an argument where the lack of term limits might be what causes one of those innovation pathways to go malign. You could trace that back from, you have to imagine you're in the year 2050. And then you're debriefing like a historian where we are now and how we got to some malign place in 2050. You could play out a very credible scenario where you trace that back from contributing factors to the root cause being the term limits weren't enacted. So the same people sat in the same environments. And they weren't the right people to make this happen. As we're going through, like, what Thomas Kuhn would write about, I believe we're in, is if you read Structures of Scientific Revolution, it's it's kind of, it's an old school book, but the basic premise of the book, he literally says this is a book, it's a little bit older, but the basic premise of that book is like, as you have these epochs of new scientific revolutions, from steam engine to, airplanes and jet age and all this, as you progress through that, he actually says this, like, sometimes you have to just wait for that previous generation to die off before you can really really move fast.
Yeah.
Innovation now is happening so fast, that's not going to happen. And life's being extended, which is a positive thing. So Yeah, I think you could argue that. I think that's actually a salient argument of like another reason why term limits matter is to get the right kind of people in place to put very well thought out governance to allow us to maintain technology dominance while preventing it from turning it into a 1984 situation. Yes. And that will not be easy. That will not be easy. Like that's going to take very serious people with very high IQs doing very real things. And it will, and it will also be not just humans. It'll be a group of humans and machines doing this. The machines will be involved in this. The machines already are, right? Who makes a decision now without at least GPTing it once?
Right. Okay, I see what you're
They're
saying.
all, and that's influencing you. Like you're programming your own mental algorithm.
Sure.
100%. Like and humans are much more suggestible than we like to admit we are.
Yeah.
So it's already happening. We already live in that world.
But you also, there's optics with this stuff everywhere, just like there's with everything. And the company people think about with this whole space at the top is Palantir. They are the example company. And when you see a company that was funded by In-Q-Tel, by the bureaucracy, CIA, run by guys who are part of, especially when you look at Peter Thiel, like the elite structure, the Illuminati elite, if you will, and, they're bragging about using surveillance everywhere, including on fucking domestic protests, people get worried. Everyone out there gets worried about that because it's like, well, we're already seeing it play out.
Yeah.
And not only is it not being legislated, the fucking government's funded them, and I would like to think, because there's a litany of problems here, I would like to think that we find a way to harness this all. I am an optimist with things. And sometimes I'm like, damn, am I too much of an optimist? Do I just think we're just going to figure it out all the time? But I just over time, we have always figured things out. And I used to, when I was in my parents' house for the first 3.5 years, in the studio behind me, I had 2 pictures on top of each other. And I remember, like even back in episode 16 with my buddy Mitch, like a little more than 2 hours in that episode, we were talking about the Isaac Asimov Last Question. Yeah. And I pointed to these pictures and I said, okay, top picture was a grayscale shot of Bikini Atoll, which is the island that we blew off the Earth for a nuclear test in like 1946 or 47, something like that. And the bottom picture was a recreation of Michelangelo's Hand of God in Adam, but instead of the hand of God, it was a robot hand.
Sure. Yeah.
And the reason I had that there was because to me it was like the ultimate symbolism of we had the quote unquote I have become death weapon 80 years ago. And now like the whole fucking world has it. And for some reason, through multi-generations, knock on wood, we haven't used it to kill all of each other and have a nuclear holocaust and end the world. Meaning through all the ups and downs of dictators, regime changes, espionage problems, wars, whatever, people have always just decided that's a button we don't push, which says something about even the worst of humanity at least having some sort of like line in the sand that they won't go past. And my optimism there was that with the robot hand, with AI, if you will, we will be able to have the same type of outcome. The difference between the two is that a nuclear weapon, until it has AI in it, can't think for itself. If we develop things that can think for themselves, there are a lot of ways this could go wrong.
I definitely agree. Reactions to this too, like context matters, and the right mental model matters here. You can even probably fact check me on this, but a couple things have happened. Like one, I do think in general, because of and I mean the world's, at least the West, and in many cases beyond just the West, we've become very successful, almost opulent in how we live. Mm-hmm. And that can make you soft in a lot of ways and lose some context. So just to add to your point about nukes the advent of the nuke and even using it, an atom bomb at least, it didn't actually cause the end of the world, right? We're still here.
We're still here. And
if you look at the number of deaths from combat, from wars, it's a fraction since 1945 to 2026 of what was experienced from even just the Great War,
Yes.
World War One, a fraction of it.
Yes.
We've as a globe, we've actually experienced unprecedented levels of peace. It may not feel like it, but if you define war as someone dying, not just feeling anxious, but like actually dying from somebody who's trying to kill you, shedding blood out of anger, if you define it that way, unprecedented peace we're actually in. A level of prosperity we just never even experienced.
You're talking about gross numbers and also literally per capita percentages too.
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that, that begs a little bit, it puts some context on.
Yes.
Like it puts some context, some of the anxiety for how we view technology is simply just, it's alleviated when you just kind of step back and say, okay, look at actually where we're at right now. Like, yes, it's unknown. There's some unknowns, right? Nobody knows the future. There's some unknowns, and we're doing some new things and doing things differently. And yeah, that happens. But that's a very real thing and to just go on, we want to talk about Palantir for a minute. In our experience with them, we were a cohort startup with them. So we worked with them. We've co-developed with them. And
co-developed with them?
Co-developed with them. Yep. For our company now. What I like about them, so I can tell you firsthand stuff. One, there's a level of like software competency there that is underwhelming in some other big name companies. So I like working with people that actually know how to do their stuff and do it well. Like professional matters, skill matters, capability matters.
The CIA cares about that.
So there's that. The other thing that's kind of interesting is there's different sides to look at it too. But what I am like animated by is that that individual, that war-fighting individual, that American citizen that we've asked to go manage violence or to do very dangerous things somewhere else. And if they use, and they do, right? They use Palantir type products, then if I can work with them and give them that asymmetric advantage that we just talked about, to give Americans, national security forces, and these are like real humans now. We're not talking about like abstract things. We're talking real people your age trying to do really dangerous things and trying to sense make from a crazy world. And if these tools are helping them, and it's actually helping, whether it's law enforcement so they get back to their families every night, whether it's a war fighter so they also can get back to their families, I'm very animated by doing that. That doesn't mean there isn't guardrails that should be talked about for all of this, right? Doesn't mean there isn't guardrails. And like any industry company, we are, there is that facet of like we're fashioning the ring and then giving that ring to somebody else and hoping it works out.
Yes.
There is a facet of that. Like that is. And I think we as a society have to wrestle with that and how we can keep improving that for sure. But I say that in my experience is that I'm very motivated by giving those war fighters, those professionals, those Americans doing critical infrastructure, disaster response. We're doing some things in those environments as well. Like giving them the best possible tools to do their job. That's very animating, for us. And that clarifies ambiguity. Like when you go sit in one of their environments, go try and do their job, and do it under a threat of lethal engagement on both sides. Go to a war game and do it. Like where somebody's coming after you.
That's where it gets hard.
That's where it gets hard, and that's where a lot of the anxieties and questions, they have a way of melting away, and things get very simple, very, very simple. Like many of the combat missions I flew in gunships, where it gets very simple in certain points, especially around lethal engagements, and it gets to the point of like, let's make sure my team comes home tonight. And that's basically all that matters.
Which is a perfectly understandable motivation. And, these are one of those where the motivation can be used for the underlying method, or it could just actually be the motivation, which is what it's supposed to be. And let me clarify that. I almost while guys like you were talking, I picture the ghost of Scott Horton sitting there. and like going, oh, come on, man, you know, like the whole time and flipping out because like he's very, very libertarian. I love talking with Scott. He's great. But like, you know,
it might be happening. I felt this like
I feel like he's like sitting there just like looking at me like, Julian, you're really going to let this guy keep going on like this? But like there's things Scott says that have a ton of evidence to it that also point to ways that, you know, whether it be agencies or the military, you know, the Pentagon obviously running the military, or administrations have taken advantage of these types of national security things in the past to make it for blanket for every single thing they do. Yeah. Now, he may go too far and say, therefore, none of it's real. I'm going to disagree with Scott there. I sit in the middle of you two, quite literally. And so I hear you, like especially when I'm hearing about like American lives or like our guys at the tip of the spear, being risked. Forget these are human beings that are a part of my country as well, and they're going to engage other human beings that I also would rather not see die, right? And so naturally, in those types of situations, I want to be like, okay, whatever we got to do. But then what do we do that then becomes a precedent that we can't undo? And this kind of goes to, like, this isn't a perfect parallel, but you'll see what I'm saying. It goes to the slippery slope argument with Ed Snowden.
Sure. Yeah.
So Ed Snowden was stuck between a shit and a fart. He was fucked either way. Yeah. On one hand, he was going to break his oath and whistle blow on something which went against his contract and, you know, could have been called treasonous or whatever. Or on the other hand, he was going to allow the administration to continue trampling everyone's constitutional rights illegally using a backdoor to the legal system that no one knew about without them knowing it if he doesn't say anything. And to me, I think he made the right call, but here's and it's not necessarily his fault, but this is the problem. He now set a precedent that you can whistleblow. So the next guy whistleblows for something a little bit less, and then a little bit less, and a little bit less. And pretty soon, you know, someone whistleblows because someone took a shit in the wrong place.
That's all.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's not his fault. Like, it was a shitty situation to be in. But like, it's the same kind of psychology I think of when you're painting that example of like how many times whether it's Palantir, which is the example we use, or any company, it could be your company or whatever, do we say, fuck, we don't want to risk it, just hit the button. And then that becomes the norm, and it has cascading butterfly effects that make things actually worse than they were. Do you think about that?
I 100% do. I think two other things that just I thought of as I'm reflecting on this. So this is an important conversation too. One is, and I think we've kind of lost this art because it's nuanced. You know, we have to. It starts from a level of mutual respect, regardless on like, okay, you're an American. There's a level of respect, so we can have a certain conversation on this. We used to, you know, and this is built into even kind of our code. We code within the military and other agencies where you could have this, you know, conscientious objector, right? And there's a whole like way of doing this, and that was literally designed, I think, it was designed to prevent somebody from doing damage to their own soul. And here's what I mean by that. You will erode your own soul. You'll do moral harm to yourself if you're engaging in something that you don't believe, you know, or you have questions on. Maybe it's questions, maybe you're just concerned, maybe it's a gut reaction that you can't get over on this. And, you know, we used to have a society, and it's kind of degraded, unfortunately, I think. Like, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this or even acknowledge this. This was a way for it to be like, okay, basically, let's allow this person to take a knee from what we're doing because we don't want them to do harm to themselves from a moral. We care about them as a soul. We care about them as a soul. And all humans are soul, right? Even the enemies that I've put in the ground, they're still a soul. So there's an element that you care about them for. Like there's a humanity, there's a spark of divinity there that you care about. I think there's a way to acknowledge and respect that acknowledges and respects that each human also ultimately, you know, it's between them and their creator, and they have to feel comfortable with that. And if you're having somebody do something that violates their conscience, like genuinely violates their conscience, not they're manipulating it to try and talk about it, you know, but genuinely violates it, that's not a good thing. Like that's not a good thing. So I think there's some off ramps that we used to have that kind of help in these situations because these are tough life and death situations, and all of the reasons that we talked about earlier. Okay, let's be, and maybe there's good reason, right? Let's be, and I don't mean this as a pejorative, but let's just be hyper paranoid about enabling a 1984 situation, right? So like going down that road. I think about, so you asked, like, do I think about, could we be paving a 1984 situation for me? 100% I think about that. I also think about, if we don't, am I enabling the CCP to do it over me? So, and this is where wisdom comes into play.
This is totally fair. Keep going.
So a wise man needs to look at the full situation and think about not just the slippery slope, or try to think through second, third, and fourth order consequences of taking an action, but it's also, what if I do not take that action? What if I don't go down that road? Mm-hmm. Then what is the second, third, and fourth order effects on that?
Yes. Meaning sometimes, and this is just the reality of the world, and I don't like it, but sometimes your choices are a piece of shit and you got to pick the best one at the top of the pile.
They're always like that.
Yeah.
Maturity is understanding they're always like that.
Yeah.
Like if a decision maker, and this is true, like if you're a policy type, this is true when I was a commander, I commanded in combat and both in peacetime. This is true me as a founder. There's never a decision where it's perfectly clear. I fully understand everything's going to go and there's zero risk. Like that's never it. So the way I approach any decision like that with my company now, and born out of how I did it in combat in more intense situations before, was you take all available data, you evaluate potential courses of action. If none of them are acceptable doesn't mean perfect. It means acceptable as best you understand the situation. That's how real leaders make real decisions. And you may have months to make that decision. You may have seconds to make that decision. Depends. Wisdom understands that as well. And if none of them are acceptable, you work to generate another option for yourself.
What made you effective as a battlefield commander when you were in the Air Force and had to make decisions in seconds? What made you effective at being able to do that?
Making decisions in seconds starts with preparation. So it starts with that. So you rehearse, you think through, much like what we're talking about right now. Mission planning for a combat situation. Let's take the Venezuela action that was just taken. Mm-hmm. And I have no particular insights on this, but undoubtedly it was planned for months. You see the video of Trump watching the... I've seen a lot of hilarious videos.
He was watching them do the war game of it like 4 months ago.
Yeah. It's been...
It looks great.
It takes these things take a lot of time. As they're doing it, they're playing out. What they're attempting to do is answer like, okay, if we go this way, what are the second, third, and fourth order effects of that? If we don't do it, we go this. One thing, and God love them, I love everybody equally. I almost, pains me to admit a little bit that a SEAL taught me this, but when I was working with some SEALs, they taught me this.
Which SEAL?
It was a unit out in, what's the guy's name? I don't want to drop his name right now. It was a unit out in Germany when I lived out in Germany.
Tier 2.
Yeah. They were presenting like a ConOps, which you'd say a concept of operations, basically get approval to go do an action. And they went through, this is what we want to do, this is why we want to do it, et cetera. And then they get to the end, and this is actually something that to this day, I still talk about this. And they talk about different risks of taking that action. We take this action, this could go bad, this could go bad, this could go bad, this could go bad. You identify these risks. This is why this is answering like how I make decisions and how I made them effectively in combat. You identify these ones and they say, well, how can I mitigate that risk? Like right now I'd assess it's a 20% chance that happening. How can I get that down to 5%? A lot of times there's little actions I can take. I can't get it down to 0, but I can get it down to like less likely, or if it happens, it's less painful, mitigating. So you get all these ones. They also, and this is what they did, I thought they did exceptionally well. They also then published the risk of inaction, not just the risks of the action. Many people forget this part. It's just easy to forget. And then they go through the risk of inaction and say, yeah, if we don't do this, this could happen. And then this could escalate. And then this could happen. And it gives you a more balanced approach of how to make good decisions of both what is the risk of the action, what is the risk of not taking that action.
I hope people listening to this as a side note are applying this to their life too. This is very applicable to everything.
It's how I think of Every decision. It's definitely how I think of, as a founder going from 0 to 1 and, building something. Like you're confronted with constant decisions. And it's kind of like there's 1,000 doors you can go through. And you can only go through one. Mm-hmm. And you don't have the resources to go through the other 999. So I hope I picked the right one.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.